coming up on NFL Week 15. Gino and Eric here with you, getting ready to preview all of the games. And now we have 16 games because everybody's done with their buys now. Everybody's finished up throughout the rest of the year. And I believe we just have games for everyone now the final few weeks, Eric. And, man, it's been a crazy year when we talk about quarterbacks. We injured quarterbacks that are done for the year. Rodgers, Herbert, Richardson, Watson, Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins all had season-ending injuries. I guess Rodgers, theoretically could come back. Others, Geno Smith, C.J. Stroud, Kenny Pickett, Trevor Lawrence, banged up. Through the first 14 weeks, there have been 55 starting quarterbacks. Now, this week coming up, we're going to have a couple more. We'll probably Stroud out and definitely Stick starting for the Chargers. So now we'll be up to probably 57. 16 different teams have had to start their QB2 this year. So half of the league at this point. It's been a crazy year as far as just quarterback injuries. And 13 teams right now are 7-6 or 6-7. A lot can happen in these next 4 weeks as far as playoffs are concerned.
Yeah. One thing I gave out on my stream a couple weeks ago was the prices for the Bills were absolutely insane. I mean, I got them, I think, at plus 330 to make the playoffs. Like 50-1 to make to win the Super Bowl, 15-1 to win the AFC. I have some insane prices going on to the Bills just because with how their schedule lines up, they could actually
win the division.
Yeah, they could actually make a run. So
get a home game.
Interesting to see kind of like how it plans out and everything. Some of these teams in it like have backup quarterbacks. We don't really know what that's going to look like. It's interesting. We haven't. Chiefs offense is awful.
You're talking about the AFC right now, right? The Chiefs, They've got some concerns offensively, just like you're about to say. Miami, we just saw them blow a game. They've got major concerns. They just lost their center. They're really getting banged up too. They haven't beat any good teams all year. The Ravens, they look a little different with Andrews. Without Andrews, they should have lost that game to the Rams over the weekend. And so now you're looking at the teams that are at like the top of the AFC. Who is so scary that the Bills couldn't beat?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing we need to remember with the Bills is you just look at their point differential. I mean, this team should be better than their 7-6 record. If there's one team that is underperforming, it's them.
By all metrics too, like all the EPA stuff you look at, like they're all towards the top of all, like they're fourth in EPA per play. They're third in success rate. Overall DVOA, they're number 6. They've got the 3rd ranked offense and the 15th ranked defense, even with all those defensive injuries they've had. Because the one thing we see about them, their A game, they don't play it often, but their A game is about as good as anyone's because Allen gives them a ceiling, right?
Allen, they're starting to have Cook. Oh, sorry. They're starting to use Cook more effectively. You have Stephon Diggs, who's, that wide receiver that can make anything happen. You have big play Gabe. You have Dalton Kincaid. I mean, you have literally 1,000,002 weapons at your disposal there. Offensive line has been performing a lot better. It's gonna be interesting. I think the MVP is weird. It's a quarterback-driven award.
It is.
Rightfully so. You look at Brock Purdy, he's a favorite. 49ers are the best team. You look at his stats, he's the favorite, rightfully so. But the media always tries to make stuff narrative-driven. And if Josh Allen is able to go on a run, get this team in the playoffs, have them win the AFC North.
Because they'll have beaten the Cowboys and the Dolphins now in the next few weeks, right? To get into the playoffs.
He's sitting at 20-1. I mean, it kind of depends like how much you bet.
His numbers are starting to stack, right? He's got 25 passing and 25 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns this season, joining only Murray and Newton, the only players in history to hit both in a single season. Like those are So he's hitting some big numbers. If they start to win and then can get into a division lead, and all of a sudden there's not all that much of a difference in margin between these top teams in the AFC, his numbers might be good enough. And you look at a guy like Purdy, who, like you said, the only knock, like Purdy's numbers and the stuff that he's doing is fantastic. Like he's playing quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers at about as well of a level as you could play for them. I think the only thing that hurts him is just that his team and his coaching staff are so good. Even last year, like Brock Purdy is the number one quarterback in DYAR. You know, last year, Jimmy G was. Now, I'm watching these two guys, and it's not the same, right? You can see that Brock Purdy is better and throws the ball better down the field and is doing things better than Jimmy G, but those are things that sort of hurt him because this team was still pretty good with a Jimmy G type of quarterback, right? And then I look at Debo, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, maybe three guys on their defense. They all might be like better for their particular position than he even is as a quarterback. And all of that is stuff that's not even his fault, right? Throw in Shanahan and the scheme and everything. I wonder if that stuff ends up hurting him as we get closer and closer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to hurt him, but I don't think it should.
No, and it's tough because it's definitely something worth mentioning, right? But it's unfair to a guy who's doing everything you ask of him and even more to say, oh, well, it's only the system. But then you do have to counter that and say a guy like Jimmy G took this team to the Super Bowl. And we saw him out of that system, what he looked like, right? Mm-hmm. So it is this kind of counter, but man, he continues to just like check things off boxes that nobody else has ever done. Those are some of just the big things to talk about. Let's get into our game by game as we start with a beautiful Thursday night game with two teams that are just don't really have anything to play for at this moment. You've got the Chargers at the Raiders here. Raiders come off of a game where they didn't score a point. They had 8 first downs, 12 total drives, 202 total yards. They got into the red zone once and fumbled it. They were 3 of 14 on third down. The positive, they only allowed 3 points. Their defense played really well, but they've lost 3 in a row now, and they just have not looked good. Talk about not looking good. The Chargers, and they've lost 4 in their last 5 games. They're a 3-point dog here. So the Raiders, who didn't score a point last week, are a 3-point favorite here. The over-under in this game is 34. Herbert's out, done for the year. This Chargers offense, even with Herbert, was bad. They gained an interception, got the ball at the Denver 13-yard line, and they could only get 7 yards. They got stopped on a 4th and 3 at the Denver 6, couldn't score a point, had to turn it over on downs. They had 7 possessions in the first half, couldn't score a point. Even when Herbert was in the game, 4 punts, 2 turnovers on downs, and an interception in the 7 possessions. Easton Stick comes in. He leads 1 touchdown drive. It was the first time they had scored in 7 quarters. They scored a touchdown. His other 5 possessions, though, 2 punts, 2 turnovers on downs, and a fumble. They were 0 of 12, the Chargers, on third down. 0 of 12 and 1 of 6 on fourth down. I mean, just abysmal, Eric. Do you got anything for this game?
Yeah, I actually dove into the deep waters here. I took the I took the 49ers here plus the
Chargers.
Jesus.
You're getting sticky.
Jesus, I am sorry.
You're getting no worries, but you're getting sticky? Easton sticky?
No. I took the Raiders here minus the 3.
Okay, there we go. I was like, oh, okay.
Chargers are supposed to be this defensive monster with the players they have. DVOA rankings 27th overall, 25th pass, 22 DVOA. They're 29th in defending wide receiver ones. Adams has been a monster against the Staley defense. Per game, these are his averages. He's averaging 14 targets per game, 9 catches, 131 yards. Asante Samuel usually doesn't shadow coverage. That means he'll be matched up with Michael Davis, who is PFF graded 85. Teams after getting shut out the previous week, the next week are 70% against the number. We have Easton Stick making his first career start on the road on a short week against Max Crosby. Let's just kind of like not outthink the room in my eyes. Thursday night football favorites, 55% ATS, divisional football divisional favorites on Thursday Night Football, also 55% ATS. Plus, I'm hearing a lot of chirp from the Chargers locker room that this team has kind of mopped it in. They're kind of throwing in the white flag. Keenan Allen's not playing.
Yep.
Austin Eckler's pissed off. I'm hearing they're going to give Isaiah Spiller a run to see what they have in him. So,
You
yeah.
got stick throwing with no Allen and other receivers who've been dropping the ball repeatedly. They have been moving the ball even with Staley. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't get on the Chargers side here. I'd be fine with the Raiders at 3, anything at 3 or under. You might see 2.5s and some others in places. We're looking right now at DRF Sportsbook. Remember, if you were in the state of Iowa, you can sign up for a DRF Sportsbook account. Use our promo code FAST300. It'll get you all the way up to a $300 deposit match bonus. If you have any friends, family, relatives, it's the holiday season that you know are in the state of Iowa, let them know. Tell them to sign up. They'll get a bonus right here. And they can play all these football games coming up this weekend. We go with a game that has 2 teams in serious playoff positioning. Like, both of these teams have an opportunity to win their way into the playoffs. First up, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings with Mullins. As you pointed out, Eric, with Josh Dobbs, he had a good glimpse. And I think, give him all the credit in the world. For a few weeks, Josh Dobbs played at a level above him. Even whether or not winning and losing, those things can be subjective. Bad quarterbacks can lead teams to wins. But Dobbs actually looked good and had an offense looking good for a few weeks to that people were saying, wow. And then, as you were pointing out, he has some tendencies that the more you watch his film, you can pick up on him. And we saw that with him, and he really struggled. And I will give him some of the benefit of the doubt. Like, Jefferson came in, he got hurt, but he put Jefferson in a bad spot with some bad passes there. He just did not look very good. The Minnesota Vikings win a game 3-0 on the same day the Minnesota Wild won 3-0. How about that? 2 Minnesota 3-0 wins on the same day. First game that ended in a 3-0 score since 2007. In that game, the Vikings and Raiders only had a combined 433 total yards. They had 17 punts. So this will be the Nick Mullins show because Josh Dobbs had a completion percentage over expected, negative 16.1. That is the lowest by a Vikings quarterback in a game since at least 2016 when the Next Gen Stats era started. Jefferson says he's going to play in this game. I'll give the defense a lot of credit. They were really good. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, 19 pressures, 41% pressure rate, 4 sacks in the game, multiple pass breakups. We have a guy on the opposite side for the Bengals starting with Jake Browning. He came out of the game late with a cramp. I think it's going to be him, right, Eric? Should be Browning.
It's going to be Browning, yeah.
And you know what? He's looked really good. Over the last 2 weeks, Pro Football Focus has Jake Browning the number 1 graded quarterback. He has an 82% completion percentage. He has a 90 passing grade. No other quarterback has higher than an 82 passing grade over the last 2 weeks. Finished 8 of 9 on play action passes. So they're doing things smart for him. They're getting him warmed up with some screens, some play action stuff. And then he's capable of taking some shots down the field. You don't want him slinging it all around. Like any quarterback, you want to make life easier for him. They've done a really good job in doing that, and I'll give Zach Taylor a lot of credit. His first 3 starts as a quarterback is the highest completion percentage by any quarterback since 1950. He's at 79.3%. Only him and Herbert have had at least 800 passing yards and a completion percentage over 70 in their first 3 starts. The Bengals played really well in the second half. It was a tie game at half, but they scored touchdowns first 2 possessions of the second half, and they blew the game open. They ended up finishing 385 total yards, 6.8 yards per play. They were the 4th best offense of the week in EPA per play. So coaching staff has gotten them prepped and ready for Jake Browning. And I mean, everybody just sort of wrote them off as soon as Burrow got hurt. They've been really feisty, and they kind of show that they're pretty competent still without Burrow. They have a lot of talent on this team on both sides of the ball. And I do think their staff, while I have questions sometimes about Taylor, Eric, like he certainly had some really nice game plans the last couple of weeks. And this has been like some of the most impressed I've been with Taylor with what he's been doing with Browning.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that Browning was electric at Washington. He was one of the better quarterbacks. He set all these high school records. This kid is used to winning. He was pretty good. He just never didn't look good in shorts throwing a basketball. That's why he got where he was drafted. And then I'll give credit to O'Connell. I didn't think O'Connell was that good of a coach, but kind of looking at kind of what's going on and everything, he's taken two teams I don't think is that good, and he's kind of put him in a position to succeed, which you have to kind of give him respect for. In terms of this game, look, Taylor 46% against the number with no Burrow as a favorite. He's 1-3. Do you really trust Mullins? We don't know what's going on with Jefferson. Madison is banged up too. That means a lean on Ty Chandler. All this comes down to in my eyes is if the Vikings can contain Mixon. If the Vikings can contain Mixon, they're going to be able to win this game. Stay within the number because they're getting 3. But in terms of side right now, I want nothing to do. Got to see what's going on with Browning and everything.
And what's given him a nice little boost too, the last couple of games, Chase Brown, he's had 20 touches, 166 yards, and it sort of gives them what they were missing with Pirine, right? That change of pace guy who's just different than Mixon. Because if you have two running backs that are similar and it's just a backup that's not really different than the first, then it doesn't give you that compliment. And it doesn't keep defenses on their toes a little bit. I think he's been a nice little help for them, and they've done a really good job. I agree with you, though. I want nothing to do with the side in this one. How about another game with massive playoff implications? The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers have now lost 3 of their last 4 games. They became only the second team in history to lose back-to-back home games to teams with 10-plus losses coming into the game. Prior to Week 13, Mike Tomlin was 9-0 in home games against opponents with 10-plus losses, and he's been 0-2 in the last 2 weeks. They allowed New England to score a touchdown on their opening drive. New England had been miserable, scoring a combined 13 points in their last 3 games. New England put up 21 in the first half against them with Bailey Zappi. See, that's what was the most disappointing to me about the game with Pittsburgh. It wasn't that Trubisky struggled early, and then later in the game, they kind of cut it and came back a little bit. But Trubisky was dead last in passing grade on the week. He was bad. It was more their defense and how their defense made a bad Patriots offense look really good in the first half.
Yeah. Like for me, I look at this game, it's Tomlin as a dog. I actually got this off of openers at 3. Not really sure at this 1.5 number.
It's kind of in that deadish zone.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at the trends. Tomlin, 65 against the number as a dog, 61 against the number as a road dog, 63 as a dog off a loss. Minshew, home favorite, only 40% in his career. I know Trubisky's a starter, but the Colts defense is bad on the back 4, especially the left side of the field where Jones and Thomas line up. For me, I know on my DFS segments on my podcast, I always talk about targeting guys that line up on the left side, and I think Trubisky is going to do the same thing. Colts are 26 DVOA against the run. I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Steelers offense. I know Watt and Highsmith are in concussion protocol, but I think this is a Thursday game. I think they're going to be out. Minshew historically has struggled with pressure in his face. Also, he tends to lean on Pittman, but the Steelers are 8th DVOA defending the pass. And also, Porter has slowly morphed into a shutdown cornerback. I think he's going to be able to take Pittman away. At this number, I'd probably just play the plus 107 here on DRF though.
Yeah, the Colts side, the problem is they didn't really look very impressive last week. Their defense really struggled, allowing 385 total yards to Browning, making his 3rd career start. They allowed 6.8 yards per play. And, they were down by 14. They come back and tie the game. And then they allow the Bengals to open the second half with back-to-back touchdown drives, then a muffed punt. So the defense wasn't great. Special teams wasn't great. They had 2 turnovers, 9 penalties in a game where they actually had some chances. They were tied at halftime and even down by 2 scores. Like, they kept getting the ball with chances, but turned the ball over. And that win would have put them in a tie for first place in the division. Just 1 of 3 in the red zone. I'm a little cold on both of these teams right now, so I'm going to stay away from this one. Let's move to the Broncos at the Lions. This one is around about a 4-point spread. Lions are favored by over under 47.5. So the Lions, it's a bad matchup. I mean, I'm not trying to forgive the Lions for what happened last week against the Bears, but it's a bad matchup for them. It's a bad matchup for a lot of teams when Fields is running and playing well. And just for some reason, that defense in particular, which is struggling, when you're struggling, facing a running quarterback is one of the worst things that can happen because all these assignments you're missing and things you're not accounting for. So I'm not going to give them a pass, but it seems like a weird matchup. They had 3 turnovers, the Lions did. They struggled on key downs, just 6 of 15 on third down. And then you had that sort of the bottom side of what happens when you're overly aggressive. They were 1 of 5 on fourth down, and you could see it hurt them in some spots throughout the game. But even after the slow start, Eric, you're still up by 3 at halftime. But the first 3 possessions of the second half, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And the Bears score 3 times on their first 4 possessions of the second half. Lions didn't pick up the initial first down of the second half until there was only 9 minutes to go in the game. They fumbled a snap, turned the ball over on downs twice in the second half, and threw an interception. Goff has 5 interceptions against the Bears, 5 interceptions against every other team combined this year. And what's a little bit worrisome, he was graded quarterback number 29 on the week. He's now had his worst graded games of the year, weeks 11, 12, 14, and 7. So 3 of the last 4 have been bad games for him. And is it just kind of, him regressing a little bit because maybe he was playing a little over his head? Is it a combination of things? Are teams figuring out stuff? Whatever it is, he's not played well in this stretch. And the offensive line struggled again. They allowed 4 sacks. And you're going to run into a Broncos team that, they're just playing really well right now. They're allowing 16 points per game over their last 8. Eric, I know you've been on them in a lot of these games. In 8 of the games, they've won 6. Their defense has 18 takeaways. They've only allowed 12 touchdowns. They've been playing really well.
Look, you look at the Broncos, dude. The main thing is their defense. They've been able to get these turnovers. At what point will the turnover aggression kind of stop?
Yep.
And don't look down. They're 1 game behind the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
They are
for the division.
They are right there for the Chiefs. Obviously, I was knee deep in these, them to win it, them to win it all, them to win the West. They're over total, them to make the playoffs. So they're in a great position. Payne has kind of followed that out. They're leaning on Javonte Williams here. Obviously, look, I don't want to panic, but this is kind of like a must-win spot for the Lions.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. They haven't looked good in a while. Now you're home. You got to play better here. You really do. I was making the excuses for them because the Bears offense has been playing better. It can be a little tricky with Fields. We can see that's just a bad matchup for them. They have to, their defense has to be somewhat passable in this game. Just make some plays, something.
Since week 8, though, they've been the worst defense per EPA. And their defense, and that's when McNeil went out. When they don't have that guy next to Hutch,
yep,
it's just really hard for them to do anything. In terms of this game, look, I'm going to be on Laporta props. Broncos really do struggle covering the tight end. I'll probably look at Laporta to his receiving yard over. Those aren't up yet. If I can get 2-1 or higher for him to score a tutty, I'll take that. That's how I'm going to attack this game. At this 4 number, probably will stay away. Maybe first half, maybe I'll look at that. But it's just with how the Lions are playing, it's just really, you can't really trust them right now. And I made this analogy on my show on Tuesday night. Dan Campbell right now with his 4th down decisions is kind of like that stubborn gambler.
I know he is,
who just keeps on pushing, going
and hitting or whatever over and over. Right? It's just
he's just a complete wild card. So I really don't, unfortunately.
And it wasn't it didn't feel this way. I think with the one game that what hurt him almost was the game against the Chargers, where he was sort of forced to do it a lot because it was that back and forth game. And it worked out so much. It's almost been let's do it now every time. You don't have to do that. The 4th and 2, 3s, or even the 4th and 5s in that tricky spot around midfield, I'm fine with. When you start getting up above that, the 8s, the 9s, the 10s and stuff, you don't need to go for it then.
Oh, yeah. There is that one. This is my issue. It was 4th and 1 on their own 34. You're down 2 scores. There's 13 minutes left. You're playing against a team that's given up the least rushing yards per game, and you're without your starting center and your starting left guard, which is huge, and you decide to run the ball. It's like, what are you doing? Why not just throw a screen, get someone in a flat? I just didn't like that play. Like if Frank and Jonah were there, the center and the left guard, I get it. I understand it. But the drop off in skill from them to their back off is a pretty big drop off. Didn't like that play call. Defense has been just absolutely awful. Yeah, just give me some Laporta props here, and that's it.
Where do we roll next to? The Falcons, 3-point favorite on the road at the Panthers. Over under in this game, another nice total, 34. So it was a good game for London last week for the Falcons. He had 4 different gains of at least 20 yards, 2 more of 15 and 16, and he had a defensive pass interference in the fourth quarter. And it was another game that you look at the box score, and the Falcons had 7 more first downs, 140 more total yards in the game, and they lost. They had 6.3 yards per play. Tampa had 4.3 yards per play. They moved the ball best towards the end of the game. They were down 2 scores. They go 67 yards, touchdown, 75 yards, touchdown. They take a 3-point lead. Then they give up a long drive. They're down by 4 with 30 seconds to go. And then even then, they drive 72 yards in 30 seconds, but they have to launch a deep pass. The Falcons were missing 5 starters in that game. Every level of the defense was missing at least 1 starter. And then you could see it start to impact them in the second half. So the first half, Tampa had a 20% success rate running the ball. In the second half, Tampa had a 57% success rate running the ball. These guys were getting worn down, Eric, because it was a lot of guys that were not used to playing these many snaps. They're not like starters or premier type players, more of fill-ins. And now on the offensive line, the Falcons were already missing 2 starters, and they lost 2 more during the game last week. They ended up missing 2 field goals with the NFL's most accurate kicker, who'd only missed 1 coming into this game. And they've lost 5 one-score games this year. It's like watching the Ritter film back, man. He's one of the more confusing to me because he will look really good and really competent for large portions of the game. Like where he's making nice plays and he's athletic. And then there's just 2 or 3 every game that are so bad, that are such bad decisions. It's like, what are you doing? Where did this come from? He threw a bad interception that turned into a Tampa touchdown. He took a safety. He had a bad deep pass that should have been intercepted. He missed an easy pass to Robinson. Should have been a touchdown. They ended up having to settle for a field goal. It's really Jekyll and Hyde with him, but at least you get some good. But on the opposite side for the Panthers, we have not seen very much good for Bryce Young at all. He was 13 of 36 last week. 13 of 36 for 137 yards. He started the game 3 for his first 15 for 28 yards in his first 15 pass attempts. He missed your guy Mingo for a touchdown, and then Chark dropped 1.
Happy feet.
Right? And he did run the ball. He had 40 yards rushing, but the Panthers had 2 fumbles. They missed a field goal. They went 8 of 20 on third down. They had 20 third downs. They went 1 of 7 on fourth down. They were 0 of 2 in the red zone, 303 total yards. Okay, they hit 300 yards, but on 79 plays, 3.8 yards per play. At least they did run the ball well. They ran the ball for 200 yards as a team on 39 carries, 5.2 yards per carry. But this is the second time this year they've had a 6-game losing streak. It's not good.
I mean, the best analogy I can give with the Falcons and Arthur Smith is we've all been at the casino, and the middle-aged woman walks in and she sits down at her blackjack table, and you have no idea what the hell they're doing, why they're hitting. You know what I mean? And that's what Arthur Smith is to me.
I know, me too. I thought coming into the year and like the last couple years, like what he did in Tennessee, and even last year where it felt like he got guys to play over their heads, you and I were expecting a good year from him. And just so I've watched a lot of Falcons throughout the year. Man, they should have won so many more games, and so many times it's his fault.
He's just It's just brutal. And that's why he's the 15th least profitable coach against the spread as a favorite since 2005. I really want the 3.5 here. I'm going to be on the Panthers, but I think more Falcon money is going to come in just because how people look at the Panthers. Panthers, when you rewatch that game against the Saints, they should have won that game. They had 1,000,002 opportunities, balls in the Saints zone, just couldn't take advantage of them. Falcons are insanely banged up on the defensive side of the ball. No Jarrett, which is going to allow them to lean on Chuba Hubbard, open stuff up, hopefully in the passing game to take advantage of the injuries that the Falcons have. And at the end of the day, I don't trust Ritter. I don't trust Arthur Smith. I'm going to be on the Panthers here, but like I said, I think we can get 3.5 come Sunday.
Let's move to the next game. We got the Browns favored by 3.5 over the Bears. Over in this game is 38.5. I think it's a really good spot for the Bears in here. They've been playing some good football as of late. They had back-to-back wins for the first time in the Matt Eberflus tenure. They dominated that box score against the Lions. They had more first downs, more total yards, more yards per play. They won the time of possession by almost 7 minutes. Fields was graded quarterback number 8 on the week, finished with 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, had 58 yards rushing. Tie game late in the third quarter. They had a 4th and 13 on the Detroit 38-yard line. It was in a weird spot. They end up going for it. They pick it up with a 38-yard touchdown. I mean, a play like that for you as a fan of the Lions, so frustrating. You give up a 4th and 13 for a touchdown, too. That's just aggravating. But it's good to see that the Bears were able to do that. And what the one matchup that I'm really key on. So the Browns offensive line right now, they are really banged up and they are really struggling. They only ran for 2.9 yards per carry last week, 82 yards rushing. And I think a lot of that is because the offensive line. And I've been really impressed with what Joe Flacco's done so far. I don't know if you want to be leaning on Joe Flacco without that much of an offensive line and without a really complimentary running game. Like, he's played well and he's going to give them a better adult in the room to run the offense than what they've had so far. But I think for the Browns' great defense too, a running quarterback is always difficult, and that could kind of get them out of their spots and maybe a little undisciplined. At 3.5 here, I'm on the Bears side. The Browns are 5-2 in one-score games this year. That's another one of those things that might regress a little bit back to the mean. Just some really positive things for them, though. Got to give Kevin Stefanski a ton of credit for what he's done. They've had 4 different quarterbacks start at least 2 games for them this year, and they're 8-5. I mean, that is unbelievable to have 4 different guys start multiple games, and they've had 4 different guys, starters, have at least 1 win, which is incredible. I'm on the Bears here. I just can remember what they did last year also. It was really weird to me because everything that people were high on the Bears for coming into this year was because of what they were building on at the end of last year. And then it was almost like the Bears and their staff forgot the things that they were doing well at the end of last year. And then at the beginning of this year, they tried to make Fields like a real traditional drop back guy, and it wasn't working. And they tried to, it was like, is this Groundhog Day? Like, are we watching the same exact thing that happened last year? And then boom, here it was, like, same sort of thing. Like the last third of the year, he's starting to run a little bit better. Now their defense is better too, because they added Sweat, right? And their defensive line, they're fantastic stopping the run. And now they can put pressure on the quarterback here. So I think they're going to stop the run really well, Eric. And I think they'll be able to put a little pressure on Flacco here too at over the 3. I like the Bears in this spot.
For me, this is just a stay away. Look, Bears are coming off a big win over the Lions. Browns are coming off a big win at home over the Jaguars. Delpit, who's the safety of the Browns, he is out, which is a huge thing. You mentioned the offensive line. It just kind of comes down to they're going to lean on the run and try to open up the passing game for Joe Flacco. If Sweat and crew are able to get home, that's going to make stuff hard for Flacco. And what Flacco is this? Is this just Stefanski's magic right here where he's able to scheme all this stuff up? Because Flacco was bad last time we saw him in that Jets uniform.
Man, Jets, Broncos, right?
Change of scenery, or is this, coaching, Stefanski putting him in a position to succeed. I'm just gonna stay away here. I have futures on both teams. I have the Bears over 7.5. They need to win this game for any hope of that. I have the Browns futures to make the playoffs and to win the AFC North. So I'm just gonna stay away, and then either way, I'm gonna be in a good position here.
We got the Titans hosting the Texans. Is it going to be your beautiful long-necked buddy Davis Mills starting for the Texans?
I think it is. It's looking like it is. Just
Stroud is concussion protocol, so that's most likely.
I mean, he's 14-12 as a dog. Davis Mills 7-6 on the road. Vrabel 46% ATS is a favorite. Laying 3 or more 41% ATS. Texans injuries. Texans are banged up. I mean,
dude.
No Collins, no Dell.
Last week they didn't have Schultz, Dell, Collins, and then Stroud got hurt at the end. That was one of those games where we knew it was going to be a bad spot for them, and then all these other injuries started popping up against one of the best coverage teams in the league. So you got nobody there to get open against a really good Jets defense. And then all of a sudden, Zach Wilson had the best game of his career. That was one of those burn the film games for the Texans. I think I won't take a lot out of that game except for the injuries, right? Those are all real. Those are the real issues right now for them.
I mean, it's just their season's kind of unraveling right now, and their lack of depth is starting to become a thing. Looking at Mills's first game against the Titans, electric, 25 for 28. They lost 25-28, but he was 23 for 33, 70% completion, threw for over 300, 3 tutties, no INTs. But last year, very pedestrian. They went 1-1, completion percentage 61 and 59. His highest was throwing for 178 yards. So I don't know what we're going to get here from Davis Mills. I don't know. And it's Vrabel's proven you can't really trust him as a favorite. I kind of just want to stay away here.
Me too. I've been pretty impressed, I will say, just overall with Levis. He kind of I think the guy Sam on PFF mentioned this. He's like, if Baker Mayfield was good, if Baker Mayfield was bigger and had a better arm, that would be Will Levis. It was sort of he's got that kind of gamer in him, right? He's super intense. He's running around. He's the type of guy who picks your team up in a game when they're flat. And he's a good guy. I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league. I think he's actually a dude. He makes some of the throws. I don't know if he's going to be a top 5 guy, but
Mayo in the coffee, man. Mayo in the coffee.
That was disgusting. I couldn't. Yeah, that was disgusting. But
just can't see with him because of that.
I know. In a year where we see some bad quarterback play out there, I mean, compare what we've seen from him to Bryce Young, right?
Oh, and he's always the Panthers are always going to be hey, you know what? We had a chance to take him.
Any of these guys, right?
And this is kind of what we got. It was a phenomenal plus 14 cash money for me.
Because you know what? You deserved anyone that backed the Titans there. The Miami Dolphins didn't deserve either of those two scores to get up by 14. It was a tie game when the Titans were getting the ball back with a chance to take the lead. And they got gifted. Miami got gifted touchdown, and still couldn't stop them.
Yeah. Look, I've targeted wide receivers against this Titans secondary, but with Davis Mills throwing, no Nico, no Tank, I don't trust Noah Brown, who's banged up. This game is just going to be a straight stay away from me.
Yeah, me too. Lots of question marks there. Let's move to the Chiefs at the Patriots. Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite here on the road. Over under in this game only 37. Even with that bad offense, they've still got a big number up here. What worries me a little bit about this game, I mean, I'm not laying the number with the Chiefs. The only concern I have with being on the Patriots side, because I'm always going to be on a side like the Patriots in a game like this, is narrative-y. Mahomes seems pissed, just based on what's going on. And that's a little narrative-y. Like, I could see this being like an FU game from him where he just sort of dials it back a little bit, and Andy Reid was pissed, and they just have like one of those games where they want to come out and prove a point. But like, then I battle back. It's like, I don't know if they've got the guys on this team to do that, Eric.
Kelsey's,
like, I don't,
he's washed in my eyes. Like I said, it was a Hail Mary play against the Packers. I talked about it on my podcast, my stream. He's washed. He's done. He just doesn't have it. He just doesn't have
separation. The guy's got a lot of mileage, and they don't have like Kelsey. He's needing to be in a he's having to be in a role that's not he's never really been in before. And like you talk about this all the time, he's not a separator. You need speed guys there to keep the rest of the defense honest, and then Kelsey can win you like the jump ball. Like he can be a possession guy as he gets older. But right now, you're trying to have him be like your number one wide receiver. And he's not a breakaway guy at all. He's not fast at all. He was injured coming into the year, and now he just doesn't have the compliments around him. I'm just kind of talking myself back and forth with this game, though, because, like Zappe looked good. I know you're on the Patriots, right? You got to be on the Patriots here, right?
Yeah, I got it at 9.5 off the openers.
Yeah. Like I'm not laying it with the Chiefs. It's just my only concern with being on the side you are is the narrative is like if Reid is pissed and Mahomes is mad and they come out and we get like the very, very best version of them and they get up by 14 early, does New England even give an F? They can backdoor it there. I'll be rooting for you on your side here, especially with the better number at 9.5. Like at 7.5 and above, I'd definitely be wanting to get on the Patriots side. But the way they've been talking about the refs and that crap, and I never saw Mahomes that mad in a game. And that wasn't like just that game, right? That was like a buildup of the whole year of him feeling frustrated with his own team.
Yeah, he struck me as a kid throwing a fit,
like a rich kid.
He knows he's wrong and he can't do anything about it.
I know that. Some of his reasoning was just, it was like the play didn't mean anything, or it didn't really matter. Like the only thing that can be said after that play, because the guy was offsides, right? He was offsides. Andy Reid made a comment like, well, normally they'll give me a warning and tell me if someone was lining up offsides. Well, yeah, but what if it's not something that's happening over and over? People were upset. Did he ask the ref if he was on or off? All of that stuff. The only thing that that I can get on board with is, why'd you let the play go on? Call that thing dead. You always call those dead right away, like a lot of the time, especially if it's an offsides on the offense to where they're not getting a free play. So that's my only thing I would say is, sure, why did you let it go? Because that's what Peyton said. Peyton was just like, why did they let the play go on for that long? That would be my only thing. But everything else is like, no, it was a penalty. It should have been called a penalty.
And then they had 2 plays after that. It's amazing how he didn't throw his fit
until
after those
after
2.
the fourth. He didn't throw the fit right then. Yeah.
That was kind of funny to me. In terms of this game, look, it just comes back to the numbers. You got Mahomes, 48% ATS as a favorite, 49 as a road favorite, 3.5 or more, 46, 44 road favorite, 3.5 or more, 45% favorite, 7 or more, road favorite, 7 or more, down to 33%. This Patriots defense is phenomenal. They're without their best 2 players, and it's still a top 10 defense. And with how putrid the Chiefs offense has been, I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything against it. And the Chiefs defense, it can be run on. And that's what the Patriots are going to want to do with Zeke Elliott. They're just going to turn around, hand it off, short stuff to Hunter Henry across the middle. I like the Patriots here. I think they're going to be able to keep the ball within the number. I think this is way too much. And this Chiefs are getting these numbers because kind of like, oh, Mahomes is pissed. Mahomes is fired up. He's playing a top 10 defense. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like he's going out there to play the Carolina Panthers, whose defense is putrid, and they can just walk up and down the field on. They're going to play a top 10 defense, which has looked great, which is holding explosive offenses under 10 points or 10 points like the Chargers. I like the Patriots here, anything over a touchdown.
The key is, can you get another just decent game from their offense, which has been putrid? Zappe was graded quarterback 11 on the week. He completed 14 of his first 21 passes for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns, a couple really nice passes. Then he took a sack in the second quarter, and it looked like he might have hurt his elbow a little bit, because after that, he was only 5 of 7 for 44 yards and an interception. They went 75 yards on the opening drive to score a touchdown, and they got up early 21-3 in the game, and then they kind of stalled in the second half. They were shut out, but they won that game with 3 wide receivers active, with their number 1 running back out, with their left tackle out, with a backup quarterback on the road in a short week. So for all the crap he's been getting recently, Belichick still has something there.
And it always amazes me. People are like, make a coaching switch. Okay, who?
Who? In the middle of the year right now, who? But like, who's going to be better?
Even next year, who? Who's the guy you're going to have come in that's going to be better? Nobody. I mean, you stick with Belichick until he elects he wants to hang it up.
Exactly. We go to the Giants at the Saints. Tommy frickin' DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, 3 straight wins for the Giants. Hey,
Did
you know
see
what?
that get up he had when he entered the arena, the stadium?
Dude, it was unbelievable. And then the family with the tailgate before the game, they're all got the cutlets, the agent who just looks like he's a character out of a movie. Just like we were saying,
they're totally playing it up. And
absolutely. And you could tell the family's having
15 minutes of fame, and they're
100%. Just like we said with the Pastronaut with Dobbs, you don't know how long it's going to go for you, right? Yeah. You take advantage of it. It's because it's in New York too, with the Italian thing, so they're really leaning into it. But so for all the funny, goofy stuff, let's say this: his last 3 starts, he's graded quarterback number 13. He has 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 4 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He only had 4 incomplete passes in the game last week, and he led the Giants to 367 total yards, 6.7 yards per play. The Packers only had 4.9 yards per play. They ran for 209 yards rushing, did the Giants, and DeVito had 71 yards rushing on 10 carries. Barkley had another 86 himself. Their defense played really well. Even with the missed field goal, Giants were up 5 with a chance to run out the game. Barkley trips an unlucky fumble, gives the Packers an opportunity to score a go-ahead touchdown. They do. Giants get the ball back, and they go 8 plays, 57 yards in 1:33, and they kick a game-winning field goal. It was nice to see them use some of their weapons. Wan'Dale Robinson looked healthy. He had a bad injury, and he was out for a while over the last couple of years, but he had 6 catches, 79 yards. He also had 2 carries for 36 yards. I was hearing some cool stories about him. I think it was also on the Pro Football Focus podcast. They're talking about how, like, his transition in college, how initially when he got recruited, they wanted him to be a running back, and he changed. He's like, I'm a little small. I don't want to get all those hits as a 5'8" running back. And then when he transferred to Kentucky, that was when he became more of a receiver. And the guy is he's a good weapon to have. And now, you have a guy like him, and you have Hyatt, and you have Barkley back. All of a sudden, their defense is playing a little bit better. We're reminded that, hey, Dable is just 1 year out from being a really good coach. He can't be that bad of a coach, right? Like, this team's looked a lot more competent, Eric. This number to me is way too high for a Saints team who has not been very good offensively. They have 13 straight games without an opening drive touchdown. They missed a 29-yard field goal in that game last week. They took advantage of a bad Panthers team. That score looks way, way different than it was. They only had 207 total yards in the game. It was an 8-point game with 8 minutes left to go, and the Saints scored 2 late touchdowns. So it looked like they blew them out. They benefited from a muffed punt earlier in the game that gave them a touchdown. They were outgained by over 100 yards, and they allowed 200 yards rushing. And we're going to look at a Giants team that just ran the ball really, really well all over the Packers. And for all the jokey Tommy DeVito stuff, at like 4 or above, I'd be in. Like just anti-Saints. I like what we've seen recently from the Giants overall, and I've not been impressed with this Saints team throughout most of this year. I'm on the Giants here.
Yeah, like I really don't know what to do here. I mean, I felt the Saints got a little lucky against the Panthers, as we talked about earlier. Giants played a great game, but they just upset the Packers as a 7-point dog at home.
That was another one where it was like a great spot against the Packers, right? We just knew the Packers were getting too much love, and they shouldn't have been a touchdown favorite on the road like that at this point.
And then you look at it, Allen's 6th least profitable coach in the since 2005. Dennis Allen of the Saints. 6 is an absolute huge number for the team that's bottom 5 in the NFL in red zone efficiency. That means they're going to be kicking threes. How are they going to be able to cover this big number? Saints do struggle against the run. Huge Saquon Barkley game. You can lean on him. Superdome, tough place. This is probably going to be the toughest place DeVito has played in. Is he going to be able to control the line, make the Cadian switches and everything? Saints are insanely banged up. I mean, I think 7 is going to be my buy-in. Like, if I can get the Giants at 7, I'll take that. But I don't know. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I feel the Saints are a little bluffy, but I also feel like after the big Giants win, it's a good time to fade them. If I can get the 7 here, I'll be at this, but I'm probably going to sit this one out.
Let's get to the Jets at the Dolphins. Man, here's another one with this Dolphins team. That was one of the worst losses I can remember a team having for the Dolphins, because they didn't play well. They were gifted 2 separate touchdown gifts in the fourth quarter to put them up by 14 that they did not deserve. And all they needed to do was get 1 stop against the Titans. They couldn't stop them, or the 2-point conversion, or a 2-point conversion.
For me, the biggest takeaway of the game is I totally underestimated how good Tyreek Hill is. Tyreek Hill,
he should be the MVP this year.
Makes Tua to what he
Everything.
is.
Everything.
I was never a big Tua guy. I was anti-Tua.
No, never.
And what Tyreek Hill is able to elevate Tua to, we saw what Tua is without Tyreek Hill. And, it kind of, and now we kind of see Mahomes struggling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of makes you appreciate how good Tyreek Hill is. We really don't know what's going on with him, but we do know that the Jets are the best in the NFL in yards allowed per game to opposing wide receivers.
And we just saw them completely lock down the Texans when those guys got banged up. They just destroyed the Texans.
But the one thing is, though, is the Dolphins do have Raheem Mostert, do have A-Chain who can run the ball, and the Jets.
They got a better running game, much better.
Rushing production.
Center's out for the Dolphins too, right? He's done for the year.
To me, I look at it like this. The spot, you can make an argument to fade the Jets after coming off that big win at home against the Texans.
Zach Wilson's coming off his best game he's ever had in his whole career, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Zach Wilson is looking good, dude. He looked really good. Yeah. And I was happy for him. Me too. To come out there and do what he did. In terms of the Dolphins, man, like they just look so bad without Tyreek Hill. It's really tough. And call me crazy, I think the Bills are actually alive to win the East. I think,
dude, this game is this isn't a good game for the Dolphins with their injuries they have right now. And like if Hill's not 100% with the Jets coverage and how good they are, you pointed that out. And if Wilson can build off of that game, like this is no easy game for them. Remember how much this game flipped in the Black Friday game when he threw that pick 6 that became an interception. The game was actually close with Boyle in the game. And then that pick 6 interception just flipped it. And yeah, man, and the Dolphins still got the Ravens and the Bills to come.
Yeah. I mean, they got a tough schedule.
They got the Cowboys too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could lose 3. Like this is their, I know what you're saying though. You feel like you got the big effort from the Jets last week and it was a great spot for them. So it's nerve-wracking wanting to go back in for them. I'd be, if you're in like one of those pools where you're forced to pick a side or whatever, I'm definitely on the Jets side here. But man, yeah, like I'm a little worried about this Dolphins team, and you and I haven't been all that high on them. The Jets have gone 39 straight games without allowing a 300-yard passer. Their defense. Zach Wilson was graded quarterback 4 on the week last week. So they're playing well right now. And the Dolphins, that was a bad game for them. Even after like they didn't look good the whole game. Got a gift and then blew it late. So up next. Go ahead. Anything?
To me, this is, play some Raheem Mostert rushing props. Even if Hill plays, hope that Hill gets announced in, just because then they're going to be juiced out a little bit. But in terms of side, it's really tough here to do anything.
Packers came back to life a little bit. They had some mistakes last week that really cost them. Muffed punt, bad sack in a red zone possession. Then it forced them into a field goal instead of a touchdown. Then later in the game, another sack in a red zone possession cost them points with a longer than needed missed field goal. But even with all their mistakes, they were the beneficiary of a fumble that turned into a touchdown, and they took the lead late in the game. But the defense couldn't hold the Giants, who drove down and kicked the game-winning field goal. Love, who has been incredible for the last 3 to 4 week stretch, he was so bad in the first half. He had a 48 PFF grade. He was much better as the game went on, but he was so bad in the first half that it just put him in a really bad position. And you could tell it took him a while to get back into rhythm. One thing that they're noticing, and I'm reading about it, that he just is someone, you pointed this out exactly last week too, so I'll give you some credit. He abandons his mechanics too much. Like that moon ball he throws, and you'll get it lucky with some of those like YOLO plays, but there's a reason why there aren't that many guys like Mahomes out there. Like, you're not going to get away with that type of stuff a lot of the time. I saw that with the Caleb Williams guy at USC this year. Even with a super talented guy, like, you're not always going to be able to do that. And now the Bucs are your division leader right now. If the playoffs started today, they're in. They're 3-1 in division games. They went on a 12-play, 70-yard drive late in the game to put them up and get the victory. Baker had a really nice throw with 34 seconds left. Their run game was able to wear down the Falcons later in the second half. And it was actually their first game this year they've won when they've allowed more than 20 points. Any opinion? Bucs at the Packers. Packers are a 3.5-point favorite here.
If you would go back and talk to me at the beginning of the year, and I would say at week 15 that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are my new favorite team in the NFL, I would be completely awestruck.
You are cooking it up with Baker Mayfield.
I love what this team is doing. We need to realize that the last 3 games, they completely, during the midseason, we got to give their OC credit, changed their run scheme. And we can see it paying dividends. The last 3 games, White is averaging 95 yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry. And the Packers are absolutely putrid against the run. You can't run on them. If they're getting ahead of the sticks, I don't think the Packers defense is going to be able to create stops. And then you have Kate Otten, Michael Williams, and Chris Godwin. And Baker, you can say, well, I'm not a big Baker guy, but 3.5 or more on the road as a dog, he is 65% against the number. I don't think the Packers should be laying 3 here. I think they're a little bit overvalued. I think the defense is going to be able to get to Love, force some of those balls off his back foot. And the Buccaneers DBs are starting to get a little more healthy.
So can they just run the ball a little bit? We saw the Packers were awful against the run last week. They've been a notoriously bad against the run team, even over the last few years. I completely agree with you. I'm on the Bucs spot here at 3.5. 3 I'm fine with, but 3.5 is the number I'm looking for. That's the one I really want here.
Yeah,
let's go Tampa. I'm even sprinkle a little money line here on the plus 145 because I agree with you. I think Tampa's playing for a playoff spot right now too. Both Green Bay and Tampa are, but they're your division leader. They're playing well. We move to the 49ers at the Cardinals. 49ers are a 12.5-point favorite on the road. Got to give credit to Purdy. He's second in the league in passing yards he's 17th in passing attempts. Just incredible efficiency. Number 1 in DVOA among quarterbacks. Shanahan, Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, a defense that takes pressure off you. They had a good article on in the DVOA section of FTN, where DVOA is now, that a good comparison, because Jimmy G was so good last year in the advanced metrics. It compared the 49ers to the Minnesota Vikings from 1997 through 2000. They had 4 quarterbacks finish in the top 5 of passing metrics in 4 straight years, and they were 4 different quarterbacks. And that was because you had Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and Jake Reed. You also had Robert Smith in the backfield and a really good offensive coordinator in Billick, right? So you have a situation where it's like a perfect storm. You get really good playmakers, a good run game, good weapons, and on top of that, you need the good play caller, the good coordinator, the guy to set it all up, which the 49ers have with Shanahan. I mean, the 49ers averaged 9.9 yards per play last week. But it was kind of weird. They scored a touchdown on the opening drive in 2 plays, 75 yards. Following that, their numbers weren't great on the down-to-down. I got to give Seattle credit. They really did play hard in that game, because the 49ers scored a touchdown, and then they go 3 and out, punt, 3 and out, punt, 4 plays, interception. At that point, Seattle actually took the lead, 10-7. One more touchdown put the 49ers up by 4 at halftime. Seattle tried to keep the game close, but a quick 3-play, 75-yard touchdown just really put the game away and gave the 49ers a 12-point lead with 14 minutes left to go in the game. 49ers were first in the week in EPA per play. I mean, it was the massive plays, but they were only 12th in success rate. In a game they had to punt it 5 times. All of their weapons had a catch or a run longer than 44 yards. They had 8 plays of 25-plus yards. McCaffrey was awesome. He had 153 total yards. Ayuk had 126 yards on 6 catches. Debo's been incredible. 7 catches, 149 yards. He also had a carry, and he had 2 touchdowns in the game. Kittle had 3 receptions for 79 yards. So McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, those guys had 34 out of 42 touches in the game. Purdy had 2 carries. And other than that, it's like all you're doing is just giving it to studs. It's unbelievable, like the weapons and how good this team can be at their best. They've won 5 games in a row for the second time this year. Debo picked up 2 3rd and 11 conversions. They will catch a Cardinals team that is coming off a bye, and the 49ers had, kind of like a big get-up game, I think, a few weeks ago against the Eagles. And this is sort of a flat spot for them before you have a few more important games. They are still playing for the number 1 spot, but this is that flat spot for them. Can you get on the Cardinals side here off the bye, Eric?
No, I got my Seahawks plus the 14 last week. If this gets up to 14, I'll get involved. But right now, this is a dead number to me. This 49ers team has just been a train. They are like 70% ATS the last 2 years, covering these absolutely big numbers. Murray has struggled against the 49ers. I don't think the Cardinals have enough people on the defensive end to cover all the weapons that you mentioned for the 49ers. If this gets to 14, it's a principal.
That's my buy-in point too.
I'll take the Cardinals. But right now, I am just completely sitting back at it.
Maybe look for McBride. He had 7 for last time we saw the Cardinals. McBride had 5 first down receptions of the 7 first downs they had passing. He ended up with 13 catches for 89 yards.
The only worry with McBride is Fred Warner is electric guarding the tight end. The 49ers give up 34.8 yards per game to opposing tight ends. That is the second best. The only team that gives up less large yards, to the tight end is the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's really tough because Warner is just so good in that passing game to trust McBride in my eyes.
The rest of the weapons there. Connor was fine. They had a bad drop from Rondale Moore. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I want to be on the Cardinals spot, but the numbers not. It's just because the 49ers are really good. Like, I do think right now, as a complete whole, They have, like, if everybody's healthy, they have the best roster and they deserve to be like favored to win the Super Bowl, but they're overinflated now because like they're starting to get to the point where everybody everywhere is just like, they can't be beat. And it feels like things are going almost too well for them right now with still 4 games left to go. Like, I don't want to root for anyone to get hurt or anything, but like McCaffrey's been super healthy. Right now, they are one of the healthiest teams in the whole league. Right now.
Yeah, and I mean, they're the way the
like,
roster is constructed, even if guys in the offensive end go down, that defensive line is just so electric.
And they added some pieces this year. Like they've added some key defensive weapons, guys that I'm sure you would have liked for the Lions to add 1 or 2 of those pieces, like guys that were out there that you could have got, anyone could have got, and they went and just stacked themselves up. We move next, Eric, to the Rammies. Washington at the Rams. I mean, I've been so impressed with the Rams this year. Stafford's number 9 in passing grade on the year. Couple insane stats for them. With a healthy Stafford, Kupp, Nakua, and Kyron Williams. So those 4 guys. Quarterback, 2 receivers, and a running back. This team is really good. So if you only include the snaps that Stafford has played, they're 4th in success rate and EPA per drive this year. Just Stafford. If you include the snaps with all 4 of those guys that I mentioned, they are number 2 in success rate this year offensively, only behind the 49ers. This team is good offensively. They've got weapons. Nakua came out of nowhere. Kyron Williams sort of came out of nowhere, and they still have a very capable quarterback when he's healthy that can make really good throws. He's a smart dude. You saw the guy that's been through a lot. And McVay, well, he gets a little cute in weird spots. He's still a very good play caller and like a play designer and an offensive mind. A little bit cute in like when to kick, when to go for it, that kind of stuff. But I really have been impressed with them. And you look at their losses too. Like they lost to San Francisco in a game when they outgained the 49ers. They lost by 3 at the Bengals, by 9 to the Eagles. They lost to the Pittsburgh when Kyron Williams was hurt. They got beat up at Dallas and Stafford was hurt. And then they lost with Ripien at Green Bay. They've won 3 of the last 4, and their lone loss was in overtime against the number 1 seeded Ravens in a game where the Rams scored 31 points and had 400 yards of total offense. All the positives, all that being said, feels like a number that's a little bit big here for the Rams. I'm kind of in a stay away spot. Talk to us about this one.
I mean, last 3 games, 45-15 against the Finns, 45-10 against the Cowboys, 31-19 against the Giants. If there ever is a team that's just limping to the end, it's the Commanders. We need to remember that this team has a whole new ownership. All these coaches are gone. And I'm telling anyone right now, as soon as these books start putting prices on next coach, the enemy to the Bears, absolutely hammer it. That's who the next coach of the Chicago Bears is going to be. I actually kind of like the Rams here at anything under 7, just because
they've been good, Eric. Like those metrics are good. This would be a scary team to play in the playoffs.
Jake O'Kane, who was on my show on Tuesday night, he's adamant that they're the 4th best team in the NFC. They're going to be the team in the NFC that no one wants to play against because you have Puka, you have Williams, you have Cooper Kupp.
Kupp looked healthy last week too. That was like the healthiest he's looked in like a month and a half or 2.
In my end, I don't like laying these big numbers. If I were to, I'd lay the 6.5. But I will probably play some Kupp overs, probably Kupp to get 100 yards receiving. I'll look to do those props in this situation.
Couple more games to get to. We got a big one with the Cowboys at the Bills here, Eric. Bills are a 2-point favorite in this game, over under 50.5. Bills come off their massive win to keep them in playoff hopes alive. Got up to an early 14-point lead, and that was the game with all the drama with the Chiefs. They got a big game from Cook, who had 83 receiving yards, and you pointed out they've been getting him a lot more involved. I think they want to get Diggs more involved here. I think this is going to be a big Diggs game. They're going to try to get him involved. And, Gilmore was fantastic last week for the Cowboys defending A.J. Brown. So we'll see if Diggs can get some separation here. Do you have a strong opinion one way or the other? These two games, it's funny because these two teams both come off of really big, like emotional wins that were huge for them. It feels like a flat spot where I'd like to play against both of them, but they both still have a ton to play for.
Yeah, I actually like the Bills here. I got them at 1.5. I think this is more of a flat spot for the Cowboys because the Cowboys are kind of locked in the playoffs.
And they got that monkey off the back, right? That was like, gotta beat the Eagles. They more than anything needed to prove that they're capable of beating a good team. And it did feel like that was like weeks and months all put into that game against the Eagles where everything went perfect for them.
And when you look at it, Josh Allen, 3-point favorite or less, 62% against the number. Allen is a monster the second half of the season. He covers as a favorite at 67% rate, 65% ATS in general. Since week 12 are on, all Josh Allen does is cover as a favorite. Selling point as the Cowboys are coming off a win at home against the Eagles where they blew them out. Prescott as a road dog getting 3 points or less is only 25% ATS. I think the Bills will be able to have success throwing the ball, namely to James Cook, who's been featured in the passing game since Brady is taking over. Cowboys do struggle defending running backs in the passing game. I think Miller and Oliver will have success getting to Prescott. Prescott historically does struggle with pressure in his face. I think he'll struggle here. Plus, the Cowboys also give up an insane amount of rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. Allen's going to be able to extend play. Allen's going to be able to extend with his legs here. Bills are one of the most unluckiest teams in the NFL. If there's going to be a team that just gets a ton of positive turnover aggression to close the season, it's going to be the Bills. And Gilmore does well with big physical wide receivers.
The faster guys are harder for him.
Fastest guys with the speed, which Diggs brings to the table, he's going to struggle with. I like the Bills here. Anything?
I'm on the It feels like it's just the spot for the Bills here. Also, let's go to the Ravens at the Jags. So Ravens are a 3-point favorite on the road in this game. They're coming off their win in overtime against the Rams last week. Lawrence did play for the Jags last week. Like watching him, he didn't look like it was all that. It was bothering him all that much, but he wasn't good. Like he was bad in the game overall. He ended up finishing 28 of 50. He was graded quarterback number 30 on the week. He got better as the game went on, but he had 3 interceptions in the game. And I think what they really, again, this is something that you have pointed out to me a lot. Guys are so important in their roles. They didn't have Christian Kirk in this game. They tried to put Zay Flowers in the Christian Kirk role, and it just didn't work. He was targeted on incomplete passes, 3rd and 9, 4th and 3. He had a 3rd and 8 that they failed on a completion there. Like they were looking to him in that role, and he just didn't fill the role at all. The defense actually did a pretty good job stopping the run last week against the Browns, which gives me some positives leading into this game against the Ravens. They only allowed 82 yards rushing on 28 attempts for 2.9 yards per carry. They took advantage of short fields on a couple of Browns turnovers. The Jags themselves only had 293 total yards and 4 yards per play in that game. The Ravens won on that punt return, but they allowed the Rams to finish 3rd in the week in EPA per play, 7th in the week in success rate. They needed a late touchdown to take the lead in that game. And then in overtime, they were the beneficiary of a block in the back that didn't get called on their punt return for them to win. So, I mean, the spot here is Jacksonville for me. Did you get to the Jags in here? Did you get a better number? Talk to us about this game, Eric.
I thought it was criminal what Peterson did rolling out Lawrence. Obviously not 100%.
No, I mean, it just
he's forcing the ball to Zay Jones way too much. I don't understand his reads. I don't understand his progressions. To me, the Jags are the equivalent to the Lions of the AFC. Just a team that's winning games, but a team that we deep down, when you look at it, too many holes to win it all. Flip side, do you trust Lamar going on the road? Lamar, 3 points, that's the thing. 3 points or less, Lamar is an absolute dog covering these games. Historically, so is Harbaugh. But you trust them going down south to Jacksonville? I don't know. to me, this is just a pure stay away. I really probably won't even end up watching this game. I'll go to bed early. I don't have a feel for it. I just don't have a feel for it just because the pass funnel system that Jags run, Jags are good against the run that feeds to the middle, but there's no Mark Andrews. So you know what I mean? How the Ravens are lined up to win the game is with Andrews there, but there's no Andrews and likely plays on the outside more, doesn't line up inside. So I don't know how the Ravens are going to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, thanks for correcting me on that one too. I kept saying we're talking about the Ravens. I kept saying Zay Flowers. Zay Jones is who Lawrence was peppering it to quite a bit. They just out of role there, like you said, and you could just see you didn't need him in that game. That was what frustrated me because like you can't have Lawrence get hurt. He's your guy. He's your franchise right now. Like you can't have this guy get hurt. I agree with you. I didn't like the fact that he was out there. Like if any spot I would be on the Jags here, I want the hook if possible. So I'll wait. If I can get it, great. If not, I won't need to feel like I have to dive in here. As we move to Monday Night Football, Eric, the Eagles coming off their back-to-back losses. They are a 4-point favorite on the road here at Seattle in a game where Seattle really has to try to win this game if they have any opportunity. They're coming off 4 losses in a row. It's the first 4-game losing streak in the Pete Carroll era after a 6-3 start. Locke actually played pretty well throughout a lot of that game. He completed 16 of his first 22 passes, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. After his second touchdown, they were only down by 5, but he threw 2 interceptions in the final 14 minutes of the game. Also got sacked 3 times late in the game. The defense battled hard on the down-to-down. They couldn't stop explosive plays. San Francisco had to punt 5 times, but they allowed 527 total yards in that game. Witherspoon got injured mid-game. DK was really frustrated on the sideline, and then he ends up getting ejected. He only caught 2 passes in the first quarter, nothing else the rest of the game. So the Eagles, they've lost their last 2 by a combined 43 points. They weren't as good as they looked early in the year. I don't think they're as bad as they've looked the last couple of years, the last couple of weeks now. I think it's sort of flipped back. It's one of those things where like they were getting the beneficiary of the luck, and then like all like the lucky bounces bounced against them the last 2 weeks. They have legitimate concerns on their defense. Legitimate. They're going to get a little bit better, I think, as Leonard gets involved more, only because they were putting out such bad level of defenders that he's going to be erased. I don't think he's like fantastic or necessarily a game changer or anything. And I do think this veteran team will be able to figure some things out. Like I trust in Hurts. I actually think Sirianni's a pretty good coach. And they've got some weapons and pieces. I got no idea what the hell to do in this game though, Eric, because both of these teams really need it.
Yeah, Seattle's really bad against the run. So obviously I'm going to be looking at DeAndre Swift numbers. I think this is a good bounce back game for him. I think they're going to lean on the run a lot. One thing that's important to remember with the Eagles, from what I've been told, is they are the most analytical team in terms of putting together game plans. And I think with that being said, that kind of takes me to the Swift idea, just because Seattle is putrid against the run. I'll tell you what, as much as everyone gives shit to DK Metcalf, he's going to be one guy I'll always take on my team because he's going to hold you accountable. He got in Warner's face because let's just peep the situation here. It's a 2-score game. The game is over. DK is going to tackle you. Why the living hell are you lateraling the ball? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing there? DK tackled him. Then Warner came up and made a cheap shot on him. DK stood up. I have no problem what DK did at the end of the game, as crazy as it sounds, because he stood up for himself, and he's going to hold those guys accountable. Luck did look better. He just, how can I say this? He's a little bit too loose cannon-y. If you just kind of rope it in a little bit and have a bigger
his arm, like he throws the ball as hard as maybe any quarterback out there. In a good and bad way. Like sometimes you need to zing it, but sometimes I think he just throws it too hard for guys that are right there. Like he has a cannon. He really does. He's like one of those.
His hips. It's great how he throws, but it's
it was a tough spot for him too. He did play really well. Like I really got to give him credit. And then it was late in the game when you just feel like you got to start forcing things where he turned the ball over. But yeah, I don't know what to do here. I'm staying away from.
Swift props for me. That's it.
Eric, you and I are going to team up on Saturday morning at around 11:15 Eastern time because there are 3 Saturday games this week. So we're going to preview those 3 games, and then we'll go through our whole Sunday preview as well. And then I will replay the Sunday portion of it on Sunday morning again at 11 a.m. Eastern time for anyone who's used to tuning in to us at that point on Sunday for the game. So this is the point of the year where those Saturday games all start. We'll have games coming up Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday this week. And I look forward to talking Saturday with you. You'll have your normal podcast out this week on Friday night.
Yeah, podcast hopefully will come out Friday. And, Scott Shapiro is this week's guest on Tuesday night.
Awesome. Tell Shappy hello. I think Scott was the first guest I ever had on That's What G Said podcast when I started back in the day. Talked a lot of racing and some football with Scotty Shapp. So, Eric, buddy, good luck to you this week. We'll be tuning in and listening to Scott Shapp talk with you, and then I will talk some football with you on Saturday morning. We'll preview all of these games, and by that point, Saturday morning, we'll have an idea on some injury issues. We'll see if there's been any line movement. We can maybe give you a little extra help on some players we'll be using in fantasy and in DFS. Thanks so much, buddy. We'll be following you at ETOF21 and at ETOF21 Sports and other places on social media. Have a great rest of your night. Talk to you in the next few days.
You too, my friend.
Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. And make sure to tune in to Eric's podcast on Friday. Then come hang out with us on Saturday morning at 11:15-ish or so. I just have to finish one thing up early, and we'll be starting right around then and previewing your 3 Saturday games